Many thanks for joining us on the bench tonight, and of course this is going to be an exclusive show for you. We are on the streets of Nairobi and we just want to take this, trickle it down to common mwananchi, just wanting to help you understand what's going on. We are on the state of the nation and a bit of politics, so sit back, begin to tweet at Ongara Samson 1, at Ogolla F Ogolla, and of course at In Christ TV, the hashtag The Bench on the street. And we want to begin right now, right then. Prof,
yes,
welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
The first time you are on the bench.
And on the street, on air, on mobile, and online. And
of course, we want to be a bit objective as possible.
Yes.
We're going to have 30 minutes just to, digress on this. And of course, weeks ago, you had a press conference and you were talking about, Operation Linda Ugatuzzi.
Yes.
And you talked about bipartisan. Those are some of the things that we are going to, talk about by and large. Nothing out of that. But briefly, let's talk about Operation Linda Ugatuzzi. What's this?
Operation Linda Ugatuzzi was founded because we discovered that Kenyans passed the 2010 Constitution, and the most important thing in the Constitution was devolution. And devolution was supposed to take money to the county. Devolution was to take money in the grassroots and bring development in the grassroots. But we understood that after the election and all that process from 2010, development never went to the grassroots. What was devolved was corruption. We devolved positions, we never devolved resources. And people are still as poor as they were. The only people who are rich are the elected representatives in the county, in the ward level. And remember also that the government did not devolve some kind of, let's say, services, but they never devolved equivalent resources. For example, if you look at health, was devolved. The national budget remains more at the national level, but the not equivalent budget has gone to the county. There is no medicine in the county hospital. There is no doctors in the county hospital. Doctors remained in Nairobi. Medicine remained in Nairobi, but health was devolved. So what was devolved? They just devolved papers down. So they devolved Minister for Health in the county, but he has no medicine, he has no doctors, he has no money, he has no ambulance, he has nothing, he has no equipment. He's just there, just eating people's money. So there are positions, but never devolved. So Operation Ugatuzzi was supposed to come to defend devolution. And we saw that we needed to amend the constitution to ensure that we defend devolution. For example, if you go to a county like Tharaka Nithi, all MCAs are UDA, senator is UDA, governor is UDA, county rep is UDA, majority leader is UDA, minority leader is UDA. Tell me if someone can check on anyone there. It is a UDA caucus. So we wanted to defend the constitution.
Hold on your thought a bit. And of course, let's go back a little bit on the aspect of devolution. Some of the things you meant are a little bit, sensitive. They make sense. I want to engage you from the perspective that you are a governance expert.
Yes.
What are you seeing forthcoming?
Now, what we want to see when we amend the constitution, we shall strengthen accountability. We remove the issue of ghost workers in the county. Every single governor who has served in Kenya normally employ their own ghost workers, and that's how they eat money. Kisii County had chewed 2.8 billion in 1 year, and that is not just Kisii County, all of them. So I've done months by discovering since devolution began, we have lost 840 billion shillings in ghost workers alone. So we need to strengthen governance framework, accountability framework, but also leadership. Like now you see, everybody is fighting about Raila and Uhuru up here. But do you know the amount of stealing going on in the counties? Everyone is quiet and no one is checking. We're just saying, Raila, Uhuru, who stole the election, Sava. So there's a smoke screen. Kenyans are not seeing the truth. And this is a problem. We want people into the county. Linda Ugatuzzi, defend devolution. We need to defend devolution because that's what the people on the ground have.
You mentioned about, you've started touching about politics, and I just want us to, dig deep to, a bit of politics before we look at, some of the things in the state of the nation. One of the things that you mentioned is about corruption that happened in the previous government. Of course, they do make sense somehow, somewhat. But again, there are some, politicians or party leaders who actually believed in Linda Ugatuzzi, and, they wanted just to rally their support behind that kind of movement. And of course, reading at your press conference, the one, that you shared, some of the things that you mentioned, is about the government is not supposed to, talk about bipartisan or the opposition. And right now, you guys were, trying to advocate for multi-partisan.
Yeah.
Something that, from your perspective, you're going to give us maybe the, your insight about that. But again, if you look at that particular, that particular process and aspect, from the opposition and the government, there are also critical people remaining around. That is now the other leaders who felt like, they are left out of the government. And, we've been talking about corruption, especially in the previous government. We've talked about high cost of living. And, right now the opposition is coming really, on the forefront about, its high cost of living, its corruption. But we never saw them talking about that in the previous government. What will you tell me about that?
So first and foremost, why we talked about multi-partisanism. Remember, only a third of Kenyans registered to vote. A third registered to vote. A third voted for Ruto. Out of the third who registered to vote, which means that a third of the whole country, a third of that who registered to vote voted Ruto, a third voted for Raila, and a third didn't vote. Meaning that we're having a government of minority. Some Kenyans' voice is not in this government. Young people didn't vote. Why didn't they vote? So now if we go for bipartisan, pick two-thirds, which is Raila and Ruto, bring them together to agree. What about those who didn't vote? And not only Raila Odinga lost the election, some MCAs lost the election, some senators lost the election. And when people are demonstrating on the street, when people died, did Raila Odinga's child die? It is civil society were excluded. They have said the church is corrupt. That is not the issue. Everyone is corrupt. Let us come together, all Kenyans, corrupt, not corrupt, and agree on the way forward. Whether we shall agree to remove corruption, or we shall agree that we need to have corruption so that everybody can benefit. Let's agree. So we want multi-partisan. The church is involved, private sector, those who close their businesses when there's demonstration, they need to come again and tell us how can we solve these issues. Another thing I said, we've had so many commissions in Kenya, Akiumi reports, Kregler reports, TGRC reports, all of them have been thrown away. Now we want to negotiate bipartisan only. The only reports that get implemented in Kenya is when politicians agree. National Accord was implemented 100%. Do you know why? It involved politicians getting positions. Akiumi report was about land rights for Kenyans. It was not implemented because politicians, then they own the same land. Go to Taita Taveta, how much land does Ruto own there? And the government of Kenya owns 60% of Taita Taveta land on the national park. You get my point? If you go to Kenyatta family, they own land. So Akiumi report is not for politicians. It cannot be implemented. That's why bipartisan excludes all Kenyans and brings only politicians in parliament. In parliament, parliament is here. Let us go with it to see whether we shall enter. We cannot enter. For you to enter parliament, you have to call a member of parliament to come out for you from the gate. You have no way to enter. That's why bipartisan inside the parliament means everybody is out, politicians are inside, and their interests will be fulfilled, yours is forgotten. And that's what I'm trying to say. We have to bring multi-partism. Then the issue of corruption.
We got to talk about some politics because of time, just a bit of it.
Yeah.
I want us to talk about corruption specifically, and of course, it's something that we've witnessed for quite some times.
Yeah.
But of course, we are also seeing some efforts, or the plans, to eradicate this. And from your perspective as a governance expert, what would be some of your recommendations on how to combat corruption in Kenya?
Corruption cannot be combated when we don't have independent institutions. In Africa, any institution that begins the word independent is the most unindependent. Like IBC is not independent. And these are facts. IBC was supposed to elect commissioners, isn't it? Don't you realize when Raila Odinga went to the street, there was no way they could actually go and select commissioners. So judiciary needs to be strong and independent. Now when you saw now, when there's a case somebody has, people meet in State House, then the case is thrown away. How many cases for corruption have been thrown away? How can DCI listen to State House? So, according to me, there should be three arms of government. One is the executive, another arm is legislature, then the other arm is judiciary. But the current government has added the fourth arm, which is called State House. So all arms of government report to State House. Yet there are supposed to be three independent institutions. So decisions are taken to State House to be implemented by the other arms of government, including the executive. So before making these institutions independent, they say that Caesar's wife should not just be clean, but should also look clean. So these institutions should be not just clean, but also should look clean. They should look independent and also be independent. I can tell you, any Kenyan's heart cannot go to court. Do you know why many people who lost election never went to court? Because they knew the courts were not going to be independent, so they had no time to waste there. For you now, can you go to court against anybody who is in government? I'm
going to ask you a question really quick. Stay on that, a bit of it.
Yeah.
Just stay on that. I'm going to ask you a question after this commercial break.
Yes.
I'm going to take that question. That's why, of course, we are taking a short breather right here on Front Bench.
You are watching In Christ Television. You need to be heard. You are watching In Christ Television. You need to be heard.
Many thanks. Welcome back to the bench on the street. Of course, you're watching ICTV. We are glad you are tuned in. Of course, we are still here trying to dissect the state of the nation. We went to a commercial break when we are talking about, a bit of politics, and we are getting deep into that. And of course, Prof is here just to dissect some of the things that we are seeing in the country. That's why we have the bench every Wednesday and Thursday, just to help you understand some of the things across. Stick around, keep tweeting at Ongara Samson1, at Ogolla F Ogolla at In Christ Television, the hashtag the bench on the street. Prof, let's continue with this discussion. You talked about some of the sensitive parts of this discussion, and of course you mentioned about some of the politicians who lost elections and did not go to court.
Yes.
And some of them, I actually saw them rallying behind now the Operation Linda Ugatuzzi. And I would want to quote Daktari Ekuro Court, who said he would not be surprised, he would be on streets when Raila did not go to court. But since Raila went to court, it's as done as that. What do you think? What do you think would be his insinuations?
His insinuation is that the courts are not. The courts first are not independent.
But do you think? Just hold on a bit. But do you think he's dissatisfied with the election, with the results?
Yes, of course he is. Let me tell you, many people are dissatisfied with the electoral process. The only thing is that what else can you do? Because you can go to Supreme Court, you can go to High Court. These courts have been bought. But I want to tell Kenyans that don't give up. If you have a case, still go to court. Someone can sleep with a judge, but you cannot sleep with justice. No, justice can't go to bed with you. You can sleep with a judge, but justice will not be slept with. So many things, for example, caste was ruled. Caste should not be sworn in. They have been sworn in, they are in office. So even if the court rules that you won the election, what will happen? Nothing will happen, because how do you enforce a court order? Because if the state does not want to obey a court order, what will you do? There are so many pronouncements from court which people are still going on. Uhuru's CAS was declared illegal. They worked until he retired. Now Ruto has brought his 50. They are going to work until he retires, and courts have said it's illegal. What will you do? So these institutions are not doing their work.
As a government expert, let's a bit move away from that and talk about corruption. And you mentioned something before, you know, when we went for commercial break, you mentioned about social capital and, you know, whatever it is. Why don't we talk about this?
You see, when normally we should elect a leader who has got, in my language they call him B, somebody who has got some social capital, people respect. When you are elected out of respect, you don't have to buy anybody. In fact, when you are running for election, when you have social capital, you will be voted without spending a lot of money. But if you have no social capital, you have to buy so many people to win an election. Now, once you have bought many people to win an election, you have to recover your money. So then you have to be involved in corruption. Another thing you have to do, you have to continue buying many people, you have to continue dishing position. That's why the current president, William Ruto, he didn't have social capital. Gachagua, if you look at Gachagua's character, would you just vote for him? You'd vote for him because he has money. And he buys that position, not because he is credible. How many people are qualified to be Kenyan's number 2? Is Gachagua the best number 2 in Kenya? So they don't have social capital. They have to spend a lot of money to get this now, because they want so many people next to them. They have to dish out so many positions here, I don't know. They have to remove some people from government, put their own cronies to support them. If you don't support them, you are kicked away from work to bring their own. You understand? So this is now why and then if that is the case, the economy suffers, because money must be taken from where it should go to development into dishing out to buy the capital they don't have. Money must be given to people who positions have been created which are not necessary, to keep them in social capital which they don't have. Now Kibaki, I give you contrast. Kibaki had social capital. When he went to office, there was no need of politicking. He went straight away and started developing the economy. Ruto, since he took office, he has made only good political decisions. All economic decisions are horrible. Look here, Jubilee being raided by UDA and Kenya Kwanza. President Uhuru Kenyatta has to come out of retirement to fight his party. While when Kanu lost the election, Kibaki never bothered Kanu. He focused on building the country. Ruto took off office and started fighting Jubilee immediately, calling Kanini Kega, Sabina Chege into State House, taking photos of them, ordering them to take over Jubilee. We are at the epicenter of politics. We have ignored economics, and that's why corruption comes in.
Let's stay here a little bit. Still on corruption, of course. We've seen a number of things happening, both in government and opposition. From where you sit, do you think opposition is discharging their mandate as required by the Constitution?
No, because opposition has lost the plot. But for reasons which are very valid also. Opposition has been bought. Secondly, this current constitution doesn't envisage opposition. The constitution, people talk about opposition, there is no opposition, Sam. We have minority and majority. In parliament, there is no government and opposition. Majority and minority. And then, of course, the members who should be in minority, they were bought. So, how can cost of living be done through bipartisan? Cost of living should be done through a bill in parliament by members of parliament. And because they have been bought, they cannot pass a bill for cost of living, so we have to go to the street. So all these guys are sham. That's why we are trying to say civil society, religious leaders, private sector, development partners, NGOs must come in for multi-partisan to solve Kenya's problems once and for all.
Now, I still want us to talk a bit of, opposition, their mandate, what they are supposed to, you've talked about minority and, majority in parliament. And of course, we saw in the last government, things were a bit horrible because we didn't have, active minority. And it's the same thing, we started after election, people went to court, and then after court, we saw like now there are demonstrations. And I want you to try to substantiate this for me. When, when Raila went to court and then the elections were, upheld, and then after that, he was just quiet, and then later on, came to like, we are going to the streets and we want servers opened, we want this done. Where was he all this time after the court ruling? And why is it now that he did all that, and after now the agreement of bipartisan discussion, which actually never took place, and then right now we are seeing their plans of coming back to the streets? What do you think Raila is trying to scheme?
So first of all, you have to know that in the parliament, Azimio should be the majority in parliament. And they stole parliament. Now Azimio was said is not a party. And that's why Kenya Kwanza, actually UDA, is the majority in parliament, but it should be Azimio being majority, meaning that the election was confused. Electing speaker in parliament was a confusion. Setting up majority and minority was confused. So that was the wrong thing that went. It's not Raila's problem. It is the problem of the current government. Secondly, you have to notice here very, very critically, and this is actually very, very important, that once that was done, Ruto, instead of working to sort economy, Ruto started focusing on fixing politics and what's called bringing power, consolidating power. Now, by consolidating a lot of power, Raila thought that he will control the country through parliament because it has so many members of parliament through Azimio, but this person went and bought them. So Raila was quite knowing, I will have my power through parliament, I can pass a bill. Eventually he wakes up and finds that all parliamentarians who are independent, the coalition members have been bought. So he had no option but now go to the streets. I can tell you something, Samson, there's something about power. When you take too much power, you lose it. Just like home, if you have a wife, you have kids. If you take too much power from them, they'll fight you. If you call a cat will bite you. So when the power was taken too much by Ruto, then Raila said, I have no option. Parliament, I've been beaten. Governors beaten. Senate beaten. I go to the street. Now, about bipartisan, I am extremely surprised that Raila accepted bipartisan. Because it can't work. Things don't go wrong. They begin wrong. Parliament is controlled by Ruto. Wetangula will do everything he wants in parliament. So that's why he has said extra parliament. We do it outside parliament. That might work. But let me tell you what. If this government has been called a scammer, they scammed Kenya into bottoms up, which didn't exist, doesn't work. They scammed you on Hustler Fund. I went to court and challenged the Hustler Fund, and it was stopped. Even the board members cannot be sworn in because of me. I went to court. Operation Ugatuzzi sponsored a bill in court, a petition in court. Now, this government that is lying, we shall lower the cost of living, not to put the Bible down. Give me 1 month, I'll fix it. Give me 3 months, I'll fix this. Give me 2 years, I'll fix it. Now I'll fix it. I'll fix it next week. This government cannot be trusted even to have an agreement with Raila. They're going to have bipartisan. Because even parliament can go and agree on a bipartisan, then later the government refuses to do. He told Raila, let us negotiate outside parliament, isn't it? Now they say saying there is no negotiation for us. If he wants the server, go to IBC. When someone is a liar, he has lied to you in broad daylight. During the campaign when Ruto was campaigning with Uhuru, they said they'll build 100 stadium. They did not build. He has come and told you bottoms up. It has not worked. He's told about Hustler Fund. It's not working. He's told you he'll bring cost of living down Unga to 100. It was not brought. You are still going to negotiate with a liar? Someone who has lied to you a million times, you hope this time they'll change? So what I'm trying to say here in clear, these people are bringing confusion, and let us not be lied to. The negotiation between Raila and Ruto is about 2027. They are trying to prepare for 2027. That's why we want to come in also to be given a part in this negotiation to remove the war between Ruto and Raila and try to pacify it and build the nation.
Let me ask you really quick, still on that, let me ask you a question. You talked about, the promises or the agenda that, the UDA had, and maybe, we don't want to talk about the previous government. Let's talk about the current government. Some of the things that they have promised to do. Don't you think these things take time?
No. Let me tell you what, Bringing down cost of living, if you want to do, it is a decision for 1 week. You get me? It's a decision for 1 week. And we are not talking about theories, we are talking about case studies. When COVID hit, Uhuru took only 7 days to make subsidies and Kenyans had an easy life. Stimulus package was done in 1 week. This guy is busy with politics. If you think that they are busy with the economy, forget about it. I've told you, they are having challenges with IMF. IMF has borrowed the money, they have a thin line they are walking. But also they want to steal some money for them to recover the money they used in the campaign. Keeping these Kenyans with them is very expensive because they have no social capital. People don't love these people naturally. If you take a survey on the street here and ask these Kenyans in private, who loves these people personally? I'm telling you, may get 1 out of 10. But they love them because they have power, they are the ones with the checkbook. So everybody goes because they are the ones with the checkbook. And now that checkbook being given to buy love cannot build roads, cannot build hospital, cannot take youth to work, cannot bring manufacturing. You are now being overtaxed so that they can pay. This government collects 9 billion shillings per day. I'm an economist. They borrow 25 billion every Thursday. Per month, this government collects borrowing plus taxing 252 billion shillings per month. According to me, the government budget is between 188 to 200 billion per month budget. The government should have a surplus of 152 billion. Where is that money going is the question. Don't even lie to me that civil servants have no salaries. They have created a scam to pretend the economy is so bad that even civil servants cannot be paid so that they steal money. This is a scam. I can provide this evidence. Take me anywhere, I'll provide it. Okay. Even if you go to Central Bank, okay. KRA said we are collecting taxes efficiently.
Okay, now I want us to have this conversation as we move on. Those are actually your sentiments, and we'll prove them when we have relevant documents towards that.
Yes.
And of course, you know, as you look at everything, how things are, we are looking at state of the nation, and the ideal option that you are presenting to Kenyans is to, think the Operation Linda Ugatuzzi, something that actually can put the government to check. Tell me, what would be like the approach to combat this, or maybe just to try to rectify whatever we are seeing?
It is legislation in the long term. Remember, Kenyans have collected, the signatures were collected. Can you imagine, I have collected through Operation Ugatuzzi, where people volunteer to collect for me signatures, 7.8 million signatures. Requirement is 1 million, but we have collected 7.8 million. Why can't we take it to IBC? The commission is disbanded. There is nobody to act. But Kenyans, it will take Kenyans to understand. That's why ICV is doing very well, to at least educate Kenyans. Civic education, so they know the truth. That you are being scammed. All these politicians, Rutonomics, Railanomics, those are no solutions. We have Solomonic. So Operation Ugatuzzi says we have Rutonomics, we have Railanomics, we take Solomonic routes. And when Kenyans become wise, mjinga akirevuka, mwerevu huwa mashakani. But now the politicians, they warevu. Wakenya ni wajinga. But let me tell you what. Look at these Kenyans here. I talk to them on the street. I'm telling you something you don't know. Even if they are poor, they are not stupid. I'm telling you, these Kenyans, ask them, talk to them. Even if you see them walking barefoot, you think they are poor. They are not stupid. These people know that all these guys are scammers. They know. If you talk to them in person, in their heart, they know that their life can only change if all these scammers are out of the picture and somebody else comes. They know. And Operation Ugatuzzi is going to have programs for next generation leaders to be developed on the grassroots level so that these people emerge and take over this nation, because this way we are going nowhere. All these guys are scammers, I'm telling you. There is no solution so far. Even if Raila Odinga was in State House, ask him what will he do. It does not matter who is in State House. Can Kenyans eat? Can they go to school? Can they go to hospital? In fact, what we were creating with Operation Ugatuzzi, winning an election is not an end in itself. That is legal license to rule. Social license to rule is that you should be able to provide for us food, education, healthcare, grow the economy, help the children have access to life, make youth have jobs. This is what election will mean to us. Not that you tell us you have a sword. Can we eat the sword from State House? You know, Ruto was given a sword by Uhuru. Do Kenyans eat sword? For us, we eat food. And we want Kenyans to go back there. That's why we are starting from grassroots level. Operation Ugatuzzi. We have leaders emerge. And this program for Operation Ugatuzzi, we are looking for resources. We are looking for anyone who can be able to finance us to do serious civic education. Teach Kenyans what to do. They'll transform these people. Knowledge is power.
Thank you very much, Prof. That is quite insightful. Let's go back and, you mentioned a bit of, Railanomics and Rutonomics. I still want us to stay on opposition, Raila. We've seen in several times, even in the previous government, he had his tactics. And this time around, he has his tactics. And I asked you this, what do you think he's trying to scheme again?
Well, you see, Raila knows that he's approaching sunset days. And what Raila doesn't have much is time. Raila has ideas. Raila has goodwill. But he has no time. That's why he's trying to force that these 5 years, something should happen. And I think what he's trying to scheme is, what can you get in these 5 years? One, you know very well it is that President Uhuru Kenyatta, President Ruto is legitimately elected president. Whether they are flawed, he has followed all that process to the end. So he's the president. Leaving State House is not an issue. Let's not even discuss that. That's a gone story. But what can Raila get here? That's what he has to tell us. What does he want? Does he want to say that Ruto can leave State House so that he enters? That's not possible. Maybe what Raila can get here is to prepare the institutional framework of Kenya so that should he run in 2027, there can be a bit of a level ground. The ground is never level, but to acceptable level. Or if he wants to have good succession, maybe he wants to mentor somebody within Azimio to take over, then there can be a better playing field, because the 2027 election, I'm telling you, Ruto will have the power of the military. He has captured that institution of the police, institution of the military, institution of money. He will have money. He has got Uhuru was the one controlling treasury, and Ruto was running. This time, he's controlling treasury in his pocket. He has the policeman in his pocket. He has judiciary in his pocket. That battle is not easy to win. If Raila lost the battle, yet he had Uhuru by his side. Can he win this election if he has nobody on his side? Now, even going to the street, he's being tear-gassed. Can he even run for election? Even campaigns will be crazy. So they are trying to level the ground. There is no change of power here. Kenyans should just know the truth. There is no change of guard. Ruto will be your president until 2027 unless God decides otherwise. But Raila should prepare for 2027 and also prepare his own party and instructions and institutions that can make him win. That's what he can get. For example, if he's told, let us reform IBC, he has gotten something. Let us reform judiciary. Let us do something as Supreme Court so that when petition goes to Supreme Court, there's a way they can be addressed. Those are things he can get. But anything else, no.
And from the look of things, Prof, just really quick, do you see any form of handshake from what we are seeing? Because literally, we are seeing things, the opposition have gone quiet. Are you seeing any kind of, another handshake forthcoming?
No, handshake is a word for many things. Remember, during Moi, it was called MOU between Raila and Moi. Kibaki, it was called Nusumkati. Uhuru, it was called handshake. This time they may call it a street coffee. They might meet on the street and have coffee like we're having here. It might be called a friendly lunch, friendly dinner. They will call another name, but it's the same thing. But the issue is, what form was it? With Uhuru's handshake, it gave birth to BBI, which died, isn't it? This one also, if Ruto is clever, can also initiate BBI too. and let it again fail somewhere down the line and say courts have refused. Because even if Ruto tells you, let us do BBI, then you agree, then you come out of the street, isn't it? And people say he's a liar, he's a scammer. You'll go to court. Who controls Supreme Court and these courts? The courts will rule against your election again. So I'm trying to say, it is a dicey thing. And remember that Ruto is a very good politician. The only thing Raila can beat Ruto on is in economics. If Raila was taking my advice, Raila should go and set up an economic team that will offer alternative solutions which are economic. But going to the street fighting with Ruto, if someone has already told you, let us negotiate, then you set up a team, you put terms, then again he comes with another story, now you are going back to the street. Do you think it is good to switch on, switch off, switch on, switch off? Even if you have a bulb, when you switch off and off severally, the bulb will burn. So Kenyans come to business, Kenyans close business, Kenyan let us work, Kenyan let's go to the street. People are getting tired.
Thank you, Prof, for that, insightful, information. And of course, because of time, I want to give you less than a minute, just a parting shot. And of course, don't forget, I want you to highlight the biggest mistake that you think the government has made, this current government has made, as your parting shot as well.
For me, the biggest mistake the government has made is to shift away from its priorities. When the government put their manifesto, they had economic imperative. They have left all that and went into politics. Affordable housing was not a priority for this government. You want to make a Kenyan buy a house where there's flushing toilet when they have no food. When people's salaries are not being paid, how will they pay rent? Now government has gone to taking 3% of people's salary. Imagine your salary will be taxed until you remain only with 48% of what you earn, because 30% is pay as you earn, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You go to deduction NHIF, NSSF, you go to house levy and the rest. Is crazy. Over taxation does not lead to collecting more taxes. So one word, they have misplaced priorities, this government. So they need to focus on priority. My last word is that Kenyans, let us be wise. A politician is not your friend. Don't believe them. And also for the day, even your church, your pastor, you cannot rely on them. When the pastor talks, listen to them. Pick what is around. Follow me as I follow Jesus. Read what he says. Say, if Jesus was here, could Jesus say the same? Don't believe your pastor and your politician 100%. Use your conscience God has given you. You are not brainless. You can make very independent decisions. And let those decisions be Solomonic. They cannot be Rutonomics. They cannot be Ralanomics. Let us create a Solomonic movement.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for that kind of insightful moment. Of course, this is where we wind up Front Bench Live. It has been quite insightful on the street. Of course, we are doing this every Wednesday and Thursday. A time like this, we'll be talking about politics, state of the nation, current affairs, and name them. Going deep down from county to another, searching stories, substantiating them to a language that you only understand. Of course, it has been that wonderful. I appreciate you. I thank you for keeping us company on the bench. You've been watching ICTV, of course. Keep tweeting at Ongara Samson 1 at In Christ Television. I'll be glad to sample some of your feedbacks coming in. And of course, and next time, the same place, same channel. Good night. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, my brother.
It has been a wonderful one.
You are watching In Christ Television. You need to be heard.